Mitchell Stankovic Associates and the Underground Ideas into Action presents The Underground Chats, authentic conversations with credit union thought leaders. Today's chat, Build Change into Your DNA, with Joe Thomas, President and CEO at NextMark Credit Union.
Let me start by just saying, how are you? How's your family? How's the credit union family doing?
Sure. I'm doing fine. The family's kind of made it through the holidays, and everybody's doing well. And luckily, as far as the credit union family go, I guess we can count ourselves pretty lucky in that, unfortunately, we've just had our first confirmed case of COVID from one of the employees, but she seems to be doing fine. And these are people that work day to day on the teller line and lobby, and so this is the first time we've had any issues. We feel pretty lucky. So,
are you spiking in your area, or is it pretty much under control?
In the immediate area, we are relatively low. It's still a hot zone. Northern Virginia has been usually pretty good. At the very beginning in April, the DC area was spiking kind of early. Once that calmed down, we've got a spike going on like every place else right now, but not as bad as it has been and in other parts of the state. So yeah, you look back 9 months ago, 8-9 months ago, and you're thinking, geez, what are we going to do if one of our staff members or employees or family members goes into a red zone? And then we thought, well, what happens if we become a red zone? And now we're the red zone, and pretty much like most of the country right now. But we're really, people have been safe, and we were very early. We wouldn't open up again until we had the shields and face masks and all of that type of stuff for the people that were going in. The rest of the people have been working remotely for the most part ever since then. We try to keep one person from every department per day coming in just to handle odds and ends and faxes, things like that, and mail. But other than that, we've all been working remotely since March.
So tell me a little bit about how 2020 manifested itself. I know we were all in DC, and we, were thinking about, from an optimistic perspective, that things were going to be a great year. And then obviously we got back home and the world changed. So what did that look like for your credit union? What did that look like for your members, your communities?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Our membership is still mainly made up of county employees, a lot of first responders, and municipal type workers. We also have a fair number of community members, so we're probably about a 50-50 split in our overall membership. So the county government shut down when the state ordered it, that all non-essential services shut down. We had facilities, branches in a couple of county facilities. Those were shut down, and only one of them recently opened when the county capacity got above about 30% in that building. Right now, I kind of anticipate that's going to revert back down because of the current conditions. But as far as looking back, it seems a few years ago, back in March and April, that we very quickly adapted. We lucked out in that we had just purchased laptop computers as replacements for everybody that already was working remotely. I don't know, Sue, if you knew about I'm trying to think, about 7, 8 years ago, we had a fire at our building. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but it completely knocked out our server room and all of our electronic equipment at the main branch. We had backup at another branch, and from that point on, we had built that we were always going to have some remote capabilities for employees, and we tested it every day. So if you were allowed to work from home or remote work, you had to do it at least one day a week. So we were always testing the system. And so we were able to deploy pretty much new computer or new laptops to the majority, if not all of the back office people within a day, and had everybody up and working, a few bumps along the way within 2 days. So we were very fortunate in that we had that already kind of in the works. It took then about 3 months to actually update the older equipment that we wanted to originally update, but at least we had something we could work with right away. And so, from the safety standpoint, we felt we were in good shape. And then with the interest rate changes and just the loan payoffs, the huge deposits that started coming in, loan pay downs, and then the refinance. And so we've been been able to help members out refinance a lot of their loans over the last 6-7 months because of the incredible interest rate environment. And at the same time, we've seen unprecedented payoffs coming in. So we've had the busiest year in the last probably 6 or 7 years as far as new loan production, and we're about flat for where we were in total loans when we went into this. So it was sometimes feels like a cartoon character. Legs are running like crazy just to stay in place. But we're glad we were able to help out members do that.
So we were just talking about the factors that go into financial strength and the idea of how you've managed it. When I look across the country right now, we're seeing a decline in net worth because we've had such deposit growth, right? Mm-hmm. And members consider credit unions a safe harbor, so it demonstrates trust. So I feel really good about that. I wonder what that'll lead to in 2021. So if we could transition in terms of what you see from a big picture industry standpoint, and then what does that look like for priorities for you in 2021?
Sure. My crystal ball is no better than anybody else's as far as what's going to be going on in 2021. I think we may have all kind of thought, geez, once we got 2020 behind us, that everything was going to start picking up in 2021. And just recent events say that it could be just as crazy as last year, just in a different way. As far as the transitioning going from the financial aspect of assisting our members, I think credit unions are rightly focused on keeping their members front and center in what their needs are going to be. We're in a very lucky position in that we haven't had a lot of layoffs or people in dire financial hardship based on industry. This area is pretty stable with a lot of government employees and contractors for the government. So the employment situation has been stable, but it doesn't take much. And even for people who have a job, a lot of times, a spouse who may lose overtime or just, be temporarily laid off can cause unbelievable, panic and hardship. And at that point, sometimes refinancing loans is certainly an option. We're always willing to work with somebody if that's it, or some type of forbearance, which we've been doing. So there's lots of options. I think that we're in a pretty good position that we're able to offer. As far as the industry goes, I think this is it's going to be tough for, the credit unions, just like it is for the members. And credit unions are always a reflection of what the financial makeup is of their members. We like to think sometimes it's, and it is basically a symbiotic relationship where if we like to think the credit union's doing well, the members are doing well. It's more likely if the members are doing well, the credit union's going to be doing well and financially. But we have the reserves and we have things that we can do and just tools that we're able to deploy to help members either with budgeting or some type of financial assistance. A lot of times it's hand holding, and that's great. That's what we're here for. And if we just thought of ourselves as another financial institution that just, we're just a commodity, we probably suffer from that type of attitude. But we are basically here for our members, and their success means our success. And so whatever we can do to help them out, that's what we want to do. And I think 2021 is going to throw things at us that we never thought we I think the operable word of 2020 was pivot, and you had to learn how to pivot quickly and adjust to what the needs are of your community. And 2021 is going to be the same thing, I believe. So hopefully by the fall, we'll be starting to see the virus aspect of it, the health aspects, hopefully starting to go down and, not being as big a factor, but who knows? If Sue, the last time we were in person together, and I told you that what was going to happen happened, you would have thought I was nuts. And, that over the holidays, you were lucky if you were able to choose between 6 or 7 different face masks, and you thought, that's pretty good. I'm going to try this face mask. You would have thought that was nuts. But
and I think that you're absolutely right. And we'd have been together though, so we would have been able to have a toast and drink a glass of wine and laughed about it. Where we are today with the have and have-nots, we're starting to see, if you will, that there's a divide happening on so many levels within our country that I think credit unions have a special role to play. With the work you and I do with the foundation and the understanding of what credit union purpose is all about, I really feel like this is our time to differentiate ourselves even more. Like you said, it's listening and being part of it, being compassionate, and understanding that we can help to solve some of these issues. Although, given the last couple of days, I think we all have to just be able to understand that we're dealing with a norm that isn't norm. There was a comment made last night that resonated with me, Joe. It was the idea that what we are now considering the norm is in no way normal. It's like we've got to keep in mind that this behavior that's taking place is not normal, and we have to stand up for what's appropriate. But so when we talk, I look at top priorities. So what are going to be your top priorities for 2021?
Number one, keep people safe. Keep everybody that comes into the office safe. Our members that come in, keep them safe. One of my priorities, or our priorities, is going to try to figure out what can we do in an electronic environment to try to build a sense of community and trust. And that's a tough nut to crack. It is one thing to have a conversation like you and I, one-on-one. I think, you get a sense, and especially if you had some relationship beforehand, But if you don't, and you're talking to multiple people at the same time, trying to develop a healthy culture for the organization, how to intone empathy for somebody else through a camera is very difficult. And we're not going to get it right, but we can at least try to do it. So that's one of our priorities. Another priority for the year is try to possibly get back to what our priorities were for last year. We had gotten a large membership expansion and had plans and started putting out bids on leasing new offices. Luckily, none of the bids went through because it's such a crazy area. And now we're good. The office that we envisioned a year ago, a branch we envisioned a year ago, will not be the branch that we put up in the near future. And so how is that going to work out? The whole idea of trying to also develop an electronic branch, different than a call center, communication center, something where can be much as interactive as possible with the member. And again, try to make it a member-focused experience, not come to our website, follow these instructions as we're telling you to do it. Try to work with the member and say, okay, well, let's take a look at the screen you're seeing. Where is your pain point? How can we help you with that, get through with that? So there's still a lot of people who this is not their first, their ideal way of communicating and handling their finances and through an electronic. At the same time, we have all of this fraud going on, and we're telling, well, you can trust us. We're just another vision on their screen. So trying to build that sense of trust, community, and self-awareness in a virtual environment is going to be something we're working on. I don't know how we're going to do it, but it's something that if we don't at least make it a focus, it's not going to happen.
So fraud is something that hasn't come up, directly in some of my other conversations. Indirectly, it's at the core of a lot of things we're doing. But do you see a continuation? I know early on, last year in the pandemic, we saw a real assault of fraud. Are you continuing to see that level of potential, and obviously we just had the solar, what was it, solar winds?
Solar wind.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole idea that there can be so organized. Are you having a task force? How are you going after that issue?
It's funny you mentioned that. We formed a task force about 6 weeks ago, which brought in people from different areas because, again, it was something that, one area knew about or was hearing reports, but other areas weren't hearing of what was going on. And so instead of trying to get everybody together, we're a relatively small organization with about 60 employees. Instead of trying to get everybody in on it, having key people in different areas that could communicate and knew what to do when they heard of something like that. And sometimes those connections were informal, so we're just trying to formalize a network, a task force to help us identify it as quickly as we can and respond to it. But we are seeing a much more. And I think it's understandable for people who have not been used to electronic transactions. And now this is really the only way they can apply for, or they feel safe applying for loans and moving funds around, things like that. It isn't first nature to them. So they need some hand holding, and they then are just more susceptible to the phishing attacks that go on. And so trying to keep the member educated, keep the staff educated on what's new and what's going on out there, and what we can do to help a member once they have found it, even if it's not directly through, something related to us, but they're experiencing that type of attack and violation of their confidence in the system.
It's almost like a double-edged sword, because on one hand, we're having to literally do everything virtually, and yet, unfortunately, the bad people know that that's an opportunity. So I hadn't, in my brain, I wasn't thinking about that directly, because I know that credit unions have so many safeguards, and you're working so hard to, keep all of this safe. But the vulnerability that comes back to the member, and that their trust in their organization to support them, and with the diversity in age and all the things that are going on right now. So that's fascinating, Joe. Thank you for sharing that. So if you recall that at some time in your career, you probably read Tom Peters and the whole idea of BFOs, blinding fascists of the obvious. For me, I was kind of struck with the idea that there were so many things that were going through, i.e. you just mentioned, we had this plan for a branch, and now that's going to shift, right? What type of things that were like right in front of your face that you're going to now look at and maybe change in 2021?
Well, I think the whole idea of connecting virtually, when we first, of course, got into this, naturally thought this is temporary. This is going to be over fairly shortly. Everyone's going through it together. The whole country's shut down. The whole world is shut down. And, we can postpone doing certain things. Now that we're going into probably at least a year, it's becoming normal to act like this. It becomes, just something, one of the things that you have to do. Working from home, all of that. So there's stresses that go along on there I never would have imagined. I think we've all learned so much about ourselves in this, and I consider myself somebody who is very, I want to be around people. I want to talk to them and check in how they're doing and all of that. And at times it's felt like I'm in a dungeon someplace, working just remotely. And I didn't think I could be as productive as I had. And I didn't, of course, what I thought everybody else felt the exact same way. There are certainly tons of people who have thrived in this and are incredibly productive working remotely. And there are also people who are productive, but there's the people that you talk about an aha moment, and I thought about some of our staff members, particularly moms and dads with young children, and trying to help them with their schoolwork, trying to do a good job for their employer. They want to work, they want to do the best they can, and their spouse wants to do it too. And, the big discussion becomes, who gets the kitchen table to work remotely, and, who's going to have to take the coffee table, and what time are you going to help the kids with this lesson or that lesson? And, oh, by the way, the dog needs to be taken out, and all of that, and just trying to juggle all of that and the stress that has come up with. I think hopefully we'll come out of this as a better employer and better bosses, better teams, because we're seeing that, and it's perfectly natural. Some of the the stresses from home before that we might never have seen now become front and center, because home is the office is the home, because of the work environment, what we're trying to do. So that's may have been one of the biggest aha moments that I've had. But trying to build that sense of community, I think in the broader picture, the same thing for, how credit unions relate to each other through leagues, through roundtables. All of that is going to have to be addressed, and we'll get back to some way that we used to, but this is always going to, electronically is always going to be an option for us. And I think the other aha moment too might be, you need to turn this off at some point. I mean, people just need to not be so connected all the time. You need to be able to step back from it. The incredible productivity of people who are juggling all of these things electronically, and all they do is sit and look at a screen, whether it's for work or for the kids or for medical, talking to your doctor, everything. You're just, you need to kind of be able to back away from it and realize that it's not all craziness, and take a walk and enjoy the things that the time you wanted to spend with them, that you don't have the commute, that you can do it now. So I think we're going to come out of this so much better off as an industry and as a people. There's a lot of connectivity. It's like going through a disaster together. You're forced to, you all have that shared common experience, and now when it's over, there'll be some relationship, something that everyone is going to be able to relate to, and hopefully that gives us a better sense of what's important for ourselves, for our communities, for the credit union. So.
And I think you're absolutely right. It'll also reinforce what makes a credit union special. That sense of commitment, that understanding that it's not just a job. It carries over in so many ways. I really believe that those of us that have, this is our passion, this is our religion, credit unions, we know that it's an opportunity for us to bring people together. Quick little story before I go here to the last, but I was thinking as you were talking about the creativity with virtual, and I have a 7-year-old grandson, and it's very hard with a second grader, and I have a kindergartner too, to be virtual. And so they have their assignments, they've got their areas and all that. And he's fine. And then all of a sudden he's laying on the floor in the hallway with his iPad. And the teacher's like texting and saying, I don't know where Andrew is, but he's kind of doing his own thing. And then my daughter went out to check on him, and he actually had gone out and somehow fell on the pool, and his laptop was okay, or his little iPad was okay and everything. And then she saw him laying in the, trying to get dry and trying to stay on his classes. And I mean, it wasn't funny for them at all, but for me, it was the whole idea that there's such a spontaneity going on right now, that when this first happened, we'd have people coming and going, we'd have all those things, and we're all now trying to legitimize our world, but turning important too. I really appreciate that comment. I think it's critical because it's obsessive, access to information. It could be really crazy. So tell me about 2 ideas in action that you'd like to see the industry do.
Oh, that's a tough one. I think understanding the idea that change is going to happen. You talk about shift happens, change happens, and it isn't good or bad by itself. It's always how you react to it. And we have been talking about this at our credit union for many years, the whole idea of changing change, and that change is going to happen, and you change one thing and something else is going to change. And so it's a continual process and not a point in time. And that's what I think we're going through now. And the recognition and whatever tools people need. And sometimes it's just to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, this is kind of tough, but you've been able to handle these other changes. Now let's try to change this. And making that part of our DNA, making that part of, from now on, things are going to change. And we have some control over it, but the best control we have over it is that it's going to change, and then it's going to change again. And that's going to cause something else to change. And making that part of not only our industry and financial services, but recognizing that with our members, recognizing that with our staff, recognizing that with our whole community, that it's always going to change, and that we need tools at times to help identify that and bring that forward in a healthy way. How that's going to happen will certainly occur from somebody much smarter than me. But that's going to occur, and we're going to come up with an app to change or a program. Can't wait to see what it looks like. I think the other changes that we are unfortunately may look more like a commodity to a lot of members. The idea that you can come in and see a friend, maybe somebody you work with, somebody in the community, stand in the teller line with you, or the teller or member service rep that you're used to working with for years and years, and you're not going to see them because I don't think this is going to make a permanent change in how people do certain financial transactions, and that we're going to have to really double down on distinguishing ourselves as a caring industry that is not only concerned with the bottom line. And that's been a struggle, I think, for credit unions for a long time, for especially attracting new members. It may give us some opportunity because then we're just will be a consideration. And I know CUNA is working very hard with the CU awareness, and they have made have adopted in this environment on how they use their social media platform to the Open Your Eyes campaign. I think that's great. I think that can go all around the world with just an acceptance of the cooperative financial or the financial cooperative movement there. But I wish I could just say, hey Sue, this is it. But there's never going to be a silver bullet like that, unfortunately.
No, but I think that you've hit on it. I think we have to shine our light on the differentiation of a credit union cooperative and the cooperative principles. And in some ways, credit union concepts became old school, and we moved away from that as an entity in terms of language. And education of what a cooperative means. And you and I have the opportunity to be exposed to what credit unions mean in rural communities, in rural places around the world. And us continuing to invest in that is so critical. So I just thought that since it was two of us talking, I'd say, and the third idea of action is make sure you donate to the Worldwide Foundation, because
absolutely,
we got to keep that awareness going out there. We really do. So,
as hard as it's been for us here in this country, we have it so much better off in so many ways than what's going on around the world. And so, we can't lose perspective of that. One, to count our blessings that we have this technology, and we have the luxury to say, hey, you know what? You need to turn it off sometimes. It doesn't exist in a lot of places, and the whole healthcare system, we're strained to begin with, to then add a pandemic on top of it in many parts of the world. It's true devastation. And I think credit unions have a critical part to play in so many places, whether it's because of refugees or displaced people from natural disasters or wars, or a collapse of the financial system, which is truly happening in so many places, that we can't lose sight that, one, that we have an awful lot, no matter how hard things are, but two, we have the opportunity that there are organizations like the World Council that is able to help them out. CUNA Foundation, of course, and some other very good organizations. We can't save everything, but at least we can keep the focus on credit unions and cooperative self-help organizations.
Yeah, and doing the right thing is also good business. The more that we shine the light on the work that we do, the more that we bring that message to the world, we're also learning from the world and how to connect with our communities. You mentioned that community connection. I think that the common bond, the feeling that we belong, the more that we can link those emotional components, the more that will bring back, some of that affinity that we may have lost somewhat with the transactions, with that virtual environment. So I think it kind of circles back to what you said to start with, and that's that, the whole idea, how do you build a sense of community in a digital world? I really believe that you're right on. Say thank you very much for your time.
Sure, I can't think of it. It's been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it too. So.